Would you like to play a game? Hi, I'm Andre and I'm a black nerd. So I recently went to the world premiere of the Angry Video Game Nerd movie. It was so much fun, got to hang out with friends, people from the cast of the movie, and of course get to meet the nerd himself. I'm not worthy. So I tried to go on the internet to see if there was any more information about the Angry Video Game Nerd movie, and I found out about some other video game movies that are pretty interesting. First off, I heard about this movie called Pixels. Now, the name might sound familiar if you're familiar with the short on the internet by the same name. It was this really cool short about how all these video game characters basically attacked the world. So now they're making a movie version of it. Adam Sandler and the snowman from Frozen and the guy from Game of Thrones, or Simon Bar Sinister if you ask me. They play former video game champions called in by the President of the United States, played by Kevin James, just go with it, who have to save the world when aliens attack using classic video game characters. See, what happened is that aliens saw our classic video games from the 80s and interpret those as war attacks and therefore decide to fight back using classic video game characters. And Chris Columbus is directing it. It's Harry Potter and the Chamber of Arcades, game alone. They've already claimed that we're gonna get some cameos from classic video game characters. So this could be like a live action Wreck-It Ralph referential type of video game movie. Let's just hope it's more like Waterboy and less like Jack and Jill. And then the other video game news I heard is that Warner Brothers is making a Space Invaders movie. Space Invaders, not to be confused with Spaced Invaders, about the Martians who landed on Earth and tried to attack because they thought a War of the Worlds telecast was actually an alien invasion. It's a real movie, go look it up. It stars a girl from Jurassic Park and everything. Prepare to die, Earth scum! And one of the aliens talks like Jack Nicholson. I'm seriously not making this up. But yes, the classic 80s video game Space Invaders could possibly be a movie because, you know, it works so well with board games. And I know what you're thinking. Why, of all the video games in the world, would someone want to do Space Invaders? There's so many other better video games with deeper stories than burp, pew, burp, pew, burp. But when I actually thought about it, it actually makes perfect sense that they would choose Space Invaders as a video game to turn into a movie. In almost the same way that we're getting documentaries about video games, a movie like Pixels about video games, movies like Wreck-It Ralph. People want to make video game movies, but they don't want to make them about video game stories. Space Invaders is a perfect choice because it has no story. Aliens attack Earth. That's all you get. That leaves you with so much interpretation. You're just basically using the name. You can make some kind of 3D variation of the Space Invaders aliens, and you're good. It can be like any other alien invasion story that we've ever had in the past, and no one can get upset about it. Same thing with movies like Pixels. If you're making references to video games, but you're not making a movie specifically about one specific video game, then everyone can be like, oh yeah, I know that game. Oh, look at that reference, and no one gets upset. We've already kind of seen it before with Grandma's Boy and Scott Pilgrim, even back in the day with War Games and Tron. Wreck-It Ralph is getting a sequel. There have been talks about the King of Kong, making a fictionalized version of that movie. Seth Rogen is supposedly making a movie about the Sega Nintendo console wars of the 90s. Only if you like Fruit Loops. Mario's hanging out with Fruit Loops now. Apparently you can play the title screen. Didn't know that. Now, I'm not saying it's always successful. Scott Pilgrim was definitely a movie that was video game influenced. It didn't do that well in the box office, but it still has a cult following. But when you make a video game movie that's based on a specific video game and people have an idea of what that specific video game should look like in movie form and you don't do that, you don't deliver, that's when people get upset. Could you imagine with the long-going storylines of games like Mass Effect or Metal Gear Solid, Assassin's Creed, could you imagine how difficult it would be to try to condense all of that into one movie? I mean, heck, Legend of Zelda, which is an old 80s game. Could you imagine trying to make Legend of Zelda into a movie with so many storylines and even timelines of the Zelda universe? It would be near impossible, and no matter how you try to touch that, you're gonna have some fanboys upset. I'll give you a perfect example of what I mean by this. I like The Wizard. It's fun. But I personally like Super Mario Brothers better. I have watched that movie several times. Now, I've watched The Wizard a number of times too. First off, it's a big commercial for Universal Studios and Nintendo. I know we obviously knew it was a commercial for Nintendo, but the last half hour is just pretty much, let me show you all of Universal Studios. You take away all the oh, so many points on Double Dragon in the video Armageddon in Super Mario Bros. 3. You get a pretty standard subplot about a kid having to deal with his parents being separated and having to be taken away, and some of it is just like bummer at times. The kid's got some kind of mental problem, he has a dead sister. Oh my gosh. Can we just get back to him playing Double Dragon, please, in the Power Glove? Come on. But even though both movies have their flaws, people will rip Super Mario Bros. To shreds just of how terrible it was because it wasn't based on the Super Mario Bros. Game that you remember. But no matter how many flaws the Wizard has, people still hold that movie up in high regard and nostalgia. It's hitting your thoughts of playing video games with your friends, trying to introduce video games to your parents, going to the arcade, having a huge collection of games, seeing a video game tournament, and the biggest thing, the icing on the cake, being able to see a brand new video game, a Mario video game at that, before ever seeing it in any stores, before ever being able to play it. To see a brand new game on the big screen before it was released like that, of course it's gonna make us think that that movie was amazing, as opposed to the movie that's supposed to be about Super Mario Brothers, but really isn't, no matter how silly and wacky and fun it is. No, it's not completely given up. You know, we got Uncharted movie is supposedly gonna happen. Halo is getting a series. Sly Cooper and Ratchet and Clank are getting movies, even though it should be noted that those movies look as close to the video game as possible in order for you to have that direct connection to it. But I think that we're gonna see more and more movies where video games will be a theme, a basis, something to play off of, and less of them trying to make video game movies. Movies based specifically on a video game. Because that is something you have to do right or not do it at all. Looking at you, Double Dragon. I'm looking at you. So what do you enjoy more, cousins? Do you enjoy movies based on a specific video game, or would you rather have more movies based on just the video game culture in general? And what video game do you feel should have its own movie? Video game title, the movie. Hubert. Thanks to Audible.com, who has sponsored my channel again this month. Audible.com has over 150,000 audiobooks that you can download onto your computer, your tablet, your mobile phone, so anywhere you go, you can be listening to a book. It's what LeVar Burton has always wanted. And if you go to audible.com/Andre, you get one free audiobook just for signing up. The audiobook I recommend is The Ultimate History of Video Games. If you want to know everything from Pong to Pokemon, this is the audiobook for you. So audible.com/Andre, sign up, get your free audiobook, and support them, which supports me, which supports making more videos for you guys. Circle of support. Thumbs up this video, and if you're new here, tickle that subscribe button. I make new nerdy videos all week, every week. I love you like a play cousin. I'm Audi 5000. Chin chomp. Game over.